All right, we're good to go. All right, so it's 6:02, and I would like to call to order the Board of Education Budget Finance and Operations Committee meeting this 15th of November, 2021. All right, let's just jump right in and talk about that financial report ending October 31st. Ms. Norton?
I am happy to, definitely. Not a lot to talk about still, which is a good thing. At the end of October, we do have more of our encumbrances encumbered. So we have our contracts that are encumbered, as well as most of the salaries are all encumbered. Just a few open positions are still not. Transportation has been encumbered, which wasn't in the last report. So we're about 92.2% of either expended or appropriated. The three unions, as of the end of October, these numbers are still not in the projections that you see before you. So that'll hopefully, actually probably won't materialize into the encumbrances until the January meeting. We have to have them in by the end of the fiscal year so that they hit the W-2s, but we're still working on the retros for those contracts that were negotiated and settled. And then obviously payroll taxes, you'll always see that out there because we don't encumber those ahead of time. Not a lot of changes, and we tend to be within budget in all of our categories. I am happy to say that by the time of writing this report, we had locked in both our electric until November of next year, as well as our oil up until June 30th of this year. So those two, we were concerned very much. We will be over budget on both of those at this point in time, because we did not anticipate the increase that that was going on at this time, and we weren't able to lock in what we anticipated that our good fortune was when we were budgeting last time.
Dawn, what is the difference in the in our budgeted oil?
We're looking at about 68,000 over budget in oil at this time, and that's given if we have a good winter and we don't have a very cold winter where we're going to have to use a lot more oil. We do have our COVID safeties in place still, so we will be running our filtration systems and we'll have our windows open. So we will be running electric and oil a little higher than what we normally would have, but it's pretty compatible to what we've been doing in the past year.
Dawn, the electric is the kilowatt hour. That's both the delivery and the cost of the supplier, or is that just the supplier?
That's just the supplier. We cannot lock in. I believe we can lock in demand, but we can't lock in delivery, or it's the other way around. And this is just whatever the one we can lock in. The other one we have no control over.
Yeah, because that seems steep compared to even what I'm paying. But what the heck do I know?
That's that. Actually, we waited and waited and waited until it came down to that. We were very, very excited to lock in at that rate. It was much, much higher.
Is there a reason that might be? I don't know. I'm just going off of Sean's comment. Is there a reason that would be different than a residential delivery or a residential cost?
That's a question better suited for Joe. He deals with the electric facilities. I don't know for sure.
I can find out for you, Ken, and get back to you. I believe that there is a difference, actually, because I asked the same question. That said, Sean, I think depending upon when you accessed your oil and or the quantity of it could be a variable, but I know that for myself personally, the price has shot up 20 cents in just a couple of weeks. So
no, not the oil, the electricity. I thought you
were speaking about the oil. Sorry.
No, oil is ugly for everybody, and that's actually, if I could get that price today, I would be all over, but I can't because bad things happen. But the electricity is about 30% higher than residential rates currently. And I guess I'm
I can find out about that as well.
Because I would think just with usage, because they know that we're going to use so much, I would think it would be a better rate than a residential, honestly. But What do I know? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know all the specifics of that. Joe would
Okay.
be a great person to fill you in on all that. I'm sure he's well versed as he runs into it year after
confident he
year
is.
after year.
So he could discuss all that with the new committee.
Don't talk crazy.
And obviously with all our solar panels, that the bill should be almost zero. That's my expectation. So
I think there's a
There
huge
should be
delay
some
in that recovery of solar panel reimbursement.
that's impossible.
Yeah, no, I think it is. I think there's quite a delay as in the processing of getting that information back to us. Or that comes back.
So actually, Sean, that's a good point. Could we get a breakdown analysis, whatever you would call that, of how that works, of the delay, what's the timing of the recovery, if there are delays, explanations for the delays, and how that sort of factors into the budgeting process as well as just the expense.
Mhm.
I think that'd be a good thing to have Joe maybe come onto the full board and do a quick chat with.
Absolutely. Yep.
Not necessarily a huge presentation, but
Yeah.
just, we went through this whole thing to put panels up everywhere, which
Yep.
is great. And, it'd be nice to see what that looks like.
Exactly.
We can definitely do that at one of our upcoming board meetings. I'll take a look at those agendas and we can definitely do that.
Cool.
Perfect. And if it does, if it's something that, because the agendas are full and you don't think we can get to it until February or March, I think we'd rather hear it sooner than later. So maybe we do something smaller at the committee and then something quicker at the board.
Sure.
Do you have any other questions about financials? They're pretty basic so far. Nothing out of the ordinary to report at this time.
If I just had a quick question on with payroll taxes, why don't we encumber them?
We don't encumber them because mainly it's because we don't know everybody individual's payroll tax selections, and therefore
Okay.
we can only kind of estimate some of the payroll tax and not other of the payroll tax. So we
Okay.
just don't,
Alright.
we don't encumber it at all. And then as the payrolls go through, you'll see that the payroll tax expense actually increases as every payroll does. So I do say in my my memo that the FICA and Medicare, I give you how many pays have gone through. So we've been through 9 of them at this time. So the expense in there is with 9 pays.
9 pays, right? Okay. And when we look at those numbers, that's because there's still that lump sum payment in June.
We do have a balloon payment in
Balloon payment,
June.
sorry.
Yep, mhm, that is correct.
And so
And taxes do need to be taken for that.
So that'll
those pays
be-
as well.
that'll be like what is it, 6 times higher roughly?
During the balloon payment, you mean?
Yeah. Percentage
Yes,
wise.
and some of it yes, and some of it no,
Okay.
because it's all teachers that are in the balloon payment.
Right.
But what I think you're saying though, Ken, is that essentially it's 6 times whatever one payroll would be.
Right.
Or it's really 3 times, I think, however many
Three,
paychecks.
right. Sorry. Yeah. If it's a 2-week pay period, because it's for essentially the 3 months, 3 summer months.
Correct.
That's why I went 6
Correct,
bi-weekly
Correct.
payroll over 3 months.
correct.
Okay. So when we say 9 FICA, so when we say 9 periods of FICA, we just have to remember that there's the balloon
Yeah,
payment.
right, and you'll see us, when we get towards the end, you'll see that it's payroll 26 and then 26.1. And
Right.
0.1 is the balloon payment, so it's really just one more payment that hits in June.
Okay.
And it hits the same time as the last pay, 26, that they both go at the same time. So even though it does cover the summer months of the
Right.
teachers, it's all calculated and it's part of the numbers.
Right, but it's just a large number.
Much
Mm-hmm.
larger.
Yep. Just something to keep in mind.
And so Dawn, when staff decides that they want to change their deductions in any way, then theoretically, whatever deductions they have in payroll 26, let's just say, that's whatever they have for the balloon.
That is correct. That is correct. Whatever that is, when we calculate payroll 26, we are also calculating the balloon payment for everyone. So if they were to change their payroll, their tax deduction criteria before payroll 6, it would be for both payrolls. If it was not before payroll 6, then whatever their tax selection is, that's what it'll be for the balloon payment as well as regular pay.
And do we encumber the employer portion?
No,
Because that
the employer portion is a match.
well, the employer portion is the employer portion.
Yep, which is a match of the employee's portion.
Of the FICA, but the withholding. So the withholding we're calculating separately. Is that?
Well, they get calculated at the same time when we run payroll.
Right.
We just don't encumber those funds, but we do when
So
we budget, we take an estimated look at where our salaries are, and we do a trend analysis as to, okay, this is how much we've always spent on taxes over the last, however, salaries are increasing. Sometimes we look at putting a little more in there. Sometimes it looks like we don't necessarily need to. When we set the budget for the following year, we just don't encumber all those funds ahead of time. We just spend down those funds.
Thank you. Are there
Anything
any more
else on
questions?
the financials?
I think we're good, Dawn. What else are we going to talk about tonight?
Transfers.
Woo!
I got the first set of transfers in front of you.
Right.
Yeah. There's some transfers in front of you. A couple of them go back to July, which is facilities had some unbudgeted expenses that they needed to cover back in July. Emergency repairs to the AC unit at the library and a rooftop compressor, as well as some tree removal that they needed to do in order to fix the outdoor adventure park at East Ridge Middle School. Both of those expenses they took out of projects for Ridgeberry. And the reason that they freed up the Ridgeberry project, that particular project was scheduled to be a AstroTurf, or I'm not using the right word, fake turf for their inner court area. But instead of going in that project direction, the PTA made that into a garden center. And so therefore we didn't need to do the project that was there. So the money freed up, and we, the facilities department felt that it was important to use that for the unbudgeted expenses that came up at the beginning of the fiscal year. At the high school, they had a request for the reading room, and they were taking materials, instructional materials, 2,200 for a need to purchase some more seating in order to maintain COVID distances in the reading room, as well as oceanography. They had more enrollment in oceanography, and they took the transportation funds that were of $840 to the oceanography trips, which is where they do the planning for those trips. And the last one at the high school was home ec instructional supplies to home ec equipment. And this was to purchase a stainless steel work table and stools for the students to sit on as they go through their home ec criteria.
This isn't just for safe distancing, either the reading room and the family consumer science, but it's also for the benefit of the students. So the family consumer science tables, and we actually have some that still need to be repaired, are just in disrepair. So you can imagine when you're cooking, what kind of tables you should be using. And so they've replaced them with stainless steel tables, which are far more appropriate, and stools far more appropriate for that space. So it serves two purposes.
Correct.
Dawn?
Yes,
But if they have an additional oceanography trip, aren't they going to need transportation to said trip?
they felt that the transportation could be accommodated for the students in the same amount of funds that they had available,
Excluding
less that 840,
Okay.
but they, in order to,
The admission, it's the cost of the admission for the
Right.
additional students.
By the way, I love that problem that we have too many people in the oceanography class.
Yep.
That's awesome.
yeah, that's
Really
a
good
change.
point.
We haven't seen that in quite some time.
I think it's great.
Now we just need to work on chorus and art and we're good.
Yep.
Under technology, we have a need for a transfer, a rather large transfer. And this was because of the cost of a vendor that we had, and let me just get the vendor. They increased their rate. They doubled their rate basically for our request. This was for, this is for the Ford client Chromebook licenses and support. And when the budget was processed, originally they charged us only 24,600. This particular time they charged us 40,700.
Well, it's primarily, Dawn, because we had an increase in the Chromebooks. So it's
In the number of Chromebooks that are covered under it, as well as they increased their rate on us.
Did we double the amount of Chromebooks, or what's the order of magnitude, and what's the amount of increase?
I can find that out, unless you have that in your backup, Dawn.
I don't have the number of licenses that they had to cover under that.
We can find that information out for you, though.
Yeah,
Sean,
that seems like a lot of money, and if they're raising by that much, maybe there's alternative vendors we should have considered.
I believe that Wes
Great.
did, but again, let me just find out exactly how many more devices, because as you know, in the spring, in the summer, actually, we purchased a significant amount more. So it may truly be because of the number, and they may have increased the rate a little bit, but I'll find that out for you.
And we'll and these questions we're going to address at least some of most of them on Monday during the
So yes, we'll have both of them. Yep.
discussion. Okay.
Okay. Athletics is new, something that you guys haven't seen before, that there's some transfers for athletics, but now that they're part of the general fund, this is, they fall underneath the policy of bringing all transfers before you. They had a need to rent lights at Scotchridge Middle School in order to hold field hockey practice. That was an unbudgeted expense that they weren't anticipating. So they took money from 7,500 from their purchase service video production and put it against the purchase service field hockey.
Why did we need that? Was there no other field available, or I'm not well versed in field hockey, obviously. But
I don't know his specific. Let me see if I have anything more on that. I just know it was for the lights at Scotch Ridge Middle School in order
yeah,
to
it
have.
seems like a lot that we need to rent lights when we have all sorts of facilities that seem to have lights, but I could be wrong.
My guess though, Sean, again, and one of the things that we can do, just because we're saying a lot of, we'll get that to you, if perhaps we could either receive the questions in advance so we can have the questions ready for committee, that would be helpful. But if not, we'll for sure have them at the board meeting. Just Sean, if I were to predict why we needed to rent the lights, is because the facilities we're using our other facilities for practices at the same time. And given the fact that it's starting to get dark, right, they need the lights. So that would be my prediction. The second question is, should we look at something permanent? And if so, then what? If this is something that we're going to be doing each year.
Right. I agree. And I know July, we were still one field down being rebuilt, but.
Correct.
Moving on with athletics, they had dance funds available from their fall that they needed to transfer to purchase services for dance winter in order to pay for a choreographer. And then the last one is materials football to materials purchase services football. And these were additional funds to rent bleachers for the varsity football game. And that was specifically because the Tiger Hollow field was not available and they needed to increase the seating for the games on that.
That's a good problem to have. A well-attended game.
A well-attended game.
Oh, they were plenty well attended.
They were.
Sean, if I can, let me just circle back, Sean and
Yep.
team, let me just circle back on a couple of things because I do have the answers for, so save us a little bit of time on Monday night.
Yeah.
With respect to the Chromebooks, it was the firewall security service, but we increased the amount of active Chromebooks, which we knew in the district from last year. Last year, they didn't increase the price because of COVID, but this year they didn't give us the same break. So it was the same price. We just had a break last year and we've increased the number of Chromebooks. So therefore the cost is there.
So the per unit price had stayed the same. It's just more Chromebooks.
The per unit price stayed the same, but they didn't increase the price. It's just they didn't give us the break like they did last year.
Okay.
And we increased the number of.
Yeah, last year the price was lower because they gave us a break.
A lot of our
And
vendors
negotiate.
gave us a break last year.
A lot of them did last year, and we're still working towards that, obviously, for this year's budget, but they're not as quick to offer that same opportunity.
Unfortunately.
So that 25K is going to be recurring since this is a subscription, correct?
Correct.
So we need to, that's going to show up in the budget going
You'll
forward.
see it in this year's
Is it?
budget.
But it's going to show up as a 50, right? Or 46.
40.
40.
Well, right.
So I'm going to ask again, have we considered other vendors? Because that seems, if that's just the increase, I shudder to think what we're paying for the service.
We will find that out for you as well and have that available on Monday.
Awesome.
Okay, or have Dr. DeSantis there that can answer that question.
Yep.
With respect to and this is a very superficial question because I'm speaking on behalf of Joe, with respect to the electrical rates, how much, this is the variable that you asked, why is it that it's higher than residential? So how much a building uses, we also have different rate tariffs for various buildings and higher rate tariffs for the bigger schools. So that's the reason that you're perhaps seeing a different rate in your home in the residential arena versus the school arena. Even for us, the bigger buildings have higher tariffs. Now, the logical question is, why would that be?
Yeah.
Right?
Logic doesn't. Yeah.
What's that?
It's not logical, but that doesn't always mean anything.
Correct. But Joe will be there Monday night, so we can be sure that we answer that question.
Logic doesn't always rule the day.
Especially when it comes to regulated monopolies.
That is true. Or even duopolies.
Dawn,
Alright.
just on top of the financial report, I think it's just a typo, but I think it should say 2021, 2022.
Oh yeah.
I thought we fixed that, Dawn, in the last budget meeting.
Yeah, it was from the last budget meeting.
Yeah, we did.
Thank you. Yes.
Minute.
No, not minute at all. And I did fix last time. Thank you.
I just have a general comment just about the transfers.
Yes.
Because the reason that we didn't get transfers the first meeting of this year was as I understood it was because we didn't have any transfers yet.
No, it's because I wasn't available at that meeting to go over and
Discuss
discuss
them?
them. Right.
Okay.
I didn't want to leave that on your shoulders. To
Why not?
present. Oh, okay, I'll
absolutely-
remember.
You give good explanations and I can look at the support. We can do that. I just personally, I think that's better than coming in the second meeting of the year and having, 3 months worth of transfers that we could have discussed.
Okay.
Obviously the summer transfers we didn't discuss, but the first meeting back, we should talk about them.
Sure. And
Just-
if I had given them to you at the first meeting, there would be all but the one football one on it.
Right. So we would have been good. We would have had the questions
We had
answered,
one football one for this one.
which would have been fine. Just from from a structure perspective. That's all.
No problem.
Not a problem at all.
Will
'Cause
do.
the dollar wise, it's really wasn't that much.
No. And they're all within their own budgets.
And Sean, because my team is listening in, I'm just going to come back to the pricing on the technology. It is school pricing, and it's pretty much every single vendor is offering the same. So that answers that question. Dr. DeSantis is plugged in.
It kind of sort of answers it, but it seems like a lot of money and maybe there's better ways, but I'm not in charge of that.
Well, and you know, I think when we talk about it during the budget season, it'll be a good opportunity to talk about which vendors we reached out to and what that pricing has looked like.
Well, and you know, and just to prep Wes, who's on by proxy, I don't think it's necessarily just vendor versus vendor. It might just be methodology on how we attack a problem like that, which could be done holistically, completely different, but who knows?
He's better to speak to that than I am, Sean.
I agree with you.
Hey,
That wasn't an insult, I promise.
you got it. So he'll be prepared for that.
I know he will.
Okay.
All right. Are there any other questions regarding the financial statements or the transfers or the financial reports, excuse me, or the transfers?
No, just saying good night to Wes.
All right. Good night, Wes.
All right,
Thanks,
Listening
Wes.
Ken, if it's all right, I just want to make sure that I have,
All the questions covered.
yeah, I have the questions. So I think there was a question around the lights over at CERMS, right? There was a question around the reimbursement for solar.
Yep.
So, okay. All right, I'll get that. I don't,
Not a question, just, I think it'd be
laying it out.
It was more of
instructive
a
to know how it
process.
works. Yeah,
Right.
say it again.
We just want to know how it works.
Yeah.
How does the process work?
I don't
think
really
I don't
get
think I don't think we
much
need to dig into
reimbursement.
figures. I think we just need to rough order magnitudes.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay.
And then we'll get figures when we do the budget.
I don't think we get much for solar, to be honest. So I don't know that there's a great benefit that we get other than not,
That's
Having
sad
to-
because we spent a heck of a lot of time and energy on putting panels all over our
Um,
building.
yeah, but I'm not sure about the reimbursement. That's what I'm saying. So
Oh, no, but there should be an offset. So if we're getting our energy from solar, we should be paying for less directly from the utility.
So that's what you're asking though. So that's a different question, right? Ken I think just so I'm clear, you're looking to see what savings
The
will
whole
offset
solar
or be
package.
receiving.
Yeah.
Correct.
Sorry.
That's okay. I didn't want to walk away with not being able to answer the questions.
I'd like to think it was much more valuable than a feel-good project. And I'm hoping to hear numbers that make me believe that.
Okay.
Agreed. Because nothing feels better than saving money. All right, are there any other questions?
Nope.
Are we good to go? May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Sean, second. Rachel, all in favor?
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
very much.
everyone.
All right, bye.